Be the right club. Be the right club today. Yes!
Again, has to be careful of the speed.
What a comeback season for Hal Sutton.
17 years later, Hal Sutton is the Players' champion.
He's got it going right at the flagstick. It'll be up. It is.
Okay, Chase, here we are, 2 years talking about this. Our first podcast.
Be the Right Club Today podcast.
Be the Right Club Today podcast. Somebody made that famous. I'm not quite sure.
I'm not sure who it was. Do you remember who said that?
Yeah. My recall's not quite as fast as it used to be. Anyway, I'm excited to do this with you. I think that we've got a lot to talk about. The golf world loves to hear golf talk. So this podcast is going to be about sharing stories, sharing drills, sharing technology with you, talking about parents and child relationships, talking about winning and losing, how we learn things from both sides of that. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Chase in a minute, but I want to talk about our backdrop here and why things are set up the way they are. I'm going to start by telling you we're in the middle of our academy, Hal Sutton Golf here, and you might hear a ball occasionally hit the screen.
Thump.
So don't be worried about that, but we felt like it's important that we do this in our environment. And in the backdrop right here are the 6 most important trophies that I ever won. And for those that are seeing this on video, you can tell what's going on here, but for everybody that's just in the car, on the very far left side is the U.S. Amateur 1980. From there it moves to the 1983 TPC. Then from there it goes to the 83 PGA Championship. And lastly in 83 was the leading money winner. And then what some people might have called a lull in my career, I won some tournaments, but I had a lot of downtime in that, and that's where I learned the most, and that's really important that everybody hear that, is I moved to the 2000 TPC, which is where the iconic phrase of be the right club today, and I'd never, ever entered, that had never entered, come out of my mouth before.
You hadn't practiced that phrase
I'd not
before.
practiced that. And then lastly is the Payne Stewart Award in 2007. And this is a natural progression of a person's life right here. Over here on the far left side where the U.S. Amateur was, I was really selfish. And that's important because most people, if you want to be great, you need to be selfish. And you need to surround yourself with people that allow you to be selfish and love you in spite of it. Be humble with it, but at the same time, you must be selfish in order to be great. And then as I continued to develop through the rest of my career as these trophies progress, I began to learn that there's a lot more to life than just golf. And when we finally end over here on the right-hand side with the Payne Stewart Award, it's about giving back. And that's why we're here right now, Chase. So let me talk about Chase here for a second. He and I got to know each other about probably 5 or 6 years ago. And it was at the PGA show, and it was just real simple. I was teaching here, and he was giving a talk down there about three-dimensional golf, and I was very interested in three-dimensional golf. And I asked him, was he seeing everybody's hips be really fast with the kids and their arms getting left behind? And he said yes, it was an epidemic. And so we were acquainted right off the bat because we saw eye to eye. Now, some of y'all can relate to that out there because you like people that relate to you. And Chase and I have related to each other for a long time. He's a really good friend. He was a really good player. He got a little disadvantage because he's 6'7", and we know how difficult that is. But he was a really good player, wanted to learn more about the game, invested himself as a player and as a teacher. And I brought him in because I wanted him to work with me on my game. That's how much I thought. So I've set you up, Chase. Tell them about you.
Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words coming from somebody that's won 14 times and Ryder Cup captain and the legend of the game. It's always awesome, and very honored to be able to. We've taught hand in hand and helped you with your game. You've helped me with my game for the last 4 or 5 years, and so it's been awesome to work closely with you. So. A little bit about me. I played golf at Reno, Nevada. Turned pro, played for 8 years, battled around on the mini tours and Dakota's tours and state opens and chasing qualifiers around, and came close a couple times. Was tall. I hit it a long way, but unfortunately I hit it a long way offline too many times. I didn't hit as many fairways as you did. So, I was always fascinated with the why on the golf swing, and probably as a player it probably hurt me a little bit because I always wanted to know what caused that bad swing or that bad shot. And I like you, I worked with a bunch of instructors when I was growing up, from guys like a guy by the name of Jim Woodward. Grew up, he helped me a lot. And then I worked with Randy Smith. In college I worked with another guy, EJ Pfister, worked with the Tways and a bunch of good players. He really helped me a ton. And he probably shaped my mind the most as far as, he was always learning. He was always working. He'd worked with the Hardy Camp, and he was always trying to learn, got close with Mike Adams and the bile swing guys and Andy Plummer and Michael Bennett with the stack and tilters, and was always trying to learn, and really helped me as far as, my teaching career, knowing that there's just not one way to do it. And as wife and I got pregnant. My wife got pregnant, realized like this playing career wasn't going to make it. I kind of had to get a little deeper into the instruction side, and I took a job out in Scottsdale, and that's how we met at a company, a small company that's not really around that much anymore, but called MySwing. And MySwing was an 18 sensor 3D company. And for those of you at home, think of how video games are made. We put little sensors all over the body, from the hand to the arm, up each segment, up the forearm to the upper arm, hand, head, neck, all over the place, shoulders, everywhere. And I traveled the country educating instructors how to use it, but we captured a ton of data. We captured data all over, from all different types of players, tour pros to amateurs and all that stuff. And it really opened my eyes on how the body is actually moving in 3D rather than just seeing it on grainy video or seeing it in 2D. And then, from there, I got to work with a bunch of guys, from, Mike Adams, Dana Dahlquist to, anybody and everybody in the game. I got to watch them teach, and I got to help them, kind of educate them on how the golf swing actually works in 3D. And so it was huge for my understanding of, not trying to pigeonhole everybody to swing a certain way. You mentioned I'm 6'7", I've got a 6'4" wingspan, and so that right there just tells me and should tell everybody at home that I'm not going to swing the exact same way as a Ben Hogan, who's 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", with a really, really long wingspan. And so that's kind of a little bit about my journey. I've been very blessed to work with a bunch of instructors, and I tried to learn from everybody I was in contact with. Some helped me a bunch, some didn't help me as much, but I tried to take bits and pieces and try to be able to apply little nuggets or the little tools I learned to each one of my students.
Well, I think that's another place that you and I have a lot of things in common, because I was seeking information from everybody that I thought had information. And that brings up a whole nother point, in that it's a journey. It's never one that anybody can ever complete. I don't think there's a single golfer out there, including Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods, that actually thought they reached their full potential. They're still trying to reach their full potential. And so let's talk about working with a lot of different coaches. For myself, after 25 years of doing it, I felt like the guy that I learned the most from was the guy that loved me the most, that cared about me the most. And here's the reason why I felt like that, because he was thinking about me when I wasn't even there. Right. The rest of these big name teachers, they're busy and they don't have time to think about you, and you're lucky to get the 1 hour that you get with them. And they feel like you should feel like you're lucky for getting that 1 hour. Exactly right. And Chase and I, on the other hand, we try to become personally involved with everybody, because we want you to know that we're feeling the pain along with you. that was the real hard part. I mean, as a golfer, you realize this is painful. This hurts a lot more than it feels good, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. One thing I felt as a player when I went to these coaches, I thought they had all the answers. Like every one of them had all the answers. And the thing looking back now, like we've had students leave. You've worked with a bunch of really good players, and some of them move on. They get what they want, and I think I never looked at it like these instructors didn't help 100% of their students. And no instructor, look at Butch Harmon's one of the best instructors to ever teach. He's had players leave him. He hasn't batted 100% with every student. And as I've gotten into this a little bit more, I wish my as a player, I wish I'd have realized that. I wish I'd have realized that, hey, look, not everything everybody says or this instructor in front of you says, because you go into an instructor, you're desperate. You're desperate to work with them. You're desperate to take every bit of information they give you. But it's not all going to work. You got to have a really strong filter, and I didn't have a big enough one when I was playing.
Well, one of the things that I highly recommend is ask why. Yeah. So when they start down the path of trying to get you to do something, if you don't understand, ask why. Why are we doing this? Because you need understanding. Wisdom is everything in this game. And the more you understand about what not to do will help you learn what to do. Yep. And, sometimes we go desperate. You mentioned desperate. I've been to teachers desperate. Yep. Butch Harmon was one I went to desperate. Yep. And, my desperate is different than your desperate, but believe me, my desperate was desperate to me.
And they're parallel, right? They're similar. They're just on different levels.
They're just on different levels. And, I was afraid to ask him why. He just gave me the information, and then I left and tried to sift through it, and I'm pretty sure Butch didn't even think about me after that, to be honest with you, until the next time he saw me. Yeah. And that's no offense to Butch. That's not what I'm saying. Everything is personal in the game of golf. Your clubs are personal, your putter's personal, your driver's personal. It's your bag, it's your golf course, and you want some personal attention. That's what a golfer wants.
You say all the time, you're the CEO of your game. You have to be the CEO of your game. You can't give that up to anybody else.
You cannot give that up to anybody else. Even if you're walking in for help, you still have to be the final decision maker as to whether you put it into play or not. Yep. I mean, and here's the reason why. Because if you're a tournament golfer, whether it's at the club level or at mini tour level or as high as you can go, you're the one that's going to make the decision in the end, in the difficult position that they're either going to blame you for or give you credit for. Mm-hmm. And that's what I loved about the game, to be honest with you.
That's exactly right. And again, one of my failures as a player was in that moment in the 18th hole with the one-shot lead or whatever. I tended to fall back too much on, well, this instructor told me to do this with my golf swing, rather than almost being subconscious and seeing the target and just doing what I've done a million times. I always thought and we're going to talk a lot about this stuff, but every bad shot I hit, I always thought was a mechanical issue. And as we've gotten closer and I've learned more from you about this, 75-80% of the time it was way more mental or way more of a commitment issue or a pre-shot routine issue or even a target issue than it was necessarily my golf swing failing me.
So you set me up perfectly to move into the next segment here as far as I'm concerned. The reason why I wanted to do all of this and get closely acquainted with Chase is I had to put some definition to what I'd been doing for a long period of time. And I'd been digging it out of the dirt. Mine is art. He's got the science part of this down.
New school, old school.
New school, old school. And, I didn't know when I was close except how I scored. So my whole goal was not necessarily swing at it correctly, but to score. And I'm going to stop right now and tell y'all there's so much more to being a really complete player than just your golf swing. And there's so many people out there that are chasing a beautiful golf swing. And let me just stop and tell you right now, I have seen beautiful golf swings come out on the tour and leave after 1 year. And we all looked bewildered as why didn't they make it? And then I saw ugly golf swings make millions of dollars. So that proves right there there's a lot more to this than just a golf swing. What do you think?
I think it's a great topic. So name Well, I know one guy you're going to name right off the hand, but name somebody that had a unique golf swing. Two or three guys that you can think of that had really unique golf swings that were just tough as nails and made the most of it.
Well, I was always partial to Raymond Floyd.
Yeah.
And he had his golf swing was really behind him, but he was just tougher than nails. And he taught me probably as much about the game of golf, of how to score, as anybody that ever. He took me under his wing when I was a rookie out there and said, "Hal, I'm going to teach you how to be a better player." And I'm so thankful that he did that, because he taught me how to be tough.
Yeah.
And, another unique swing was Trevino. We look at his swing now and we really admire it, but at the time that we didn't have all this stuff, he looked different than everybody else. And part of it was his body. He was shorter, short arms, but, that's another guy. And then lastly, third leading money winner of all time is Jim Furyk.
Right.
And what a career this guy's had. He's a great friend. I love him to death. He's just a Superman, and he stuck to his convictions, what he knew how to do with his dad, and they did it to be the third leading money winner.
To the best of their abilities. One thing I've always said, and I'd love your take on this, I always believe that nowadays, if Jim Furyk walks in the door today at 10 or 11 or 12, and we build Jim Furyk into a conventional golf swing, with Jim Furyk's mind and what he already has, I think he would still be Jim Furyk.
No doubt about it.
I don't think we would lose him. There's a lot of people that say, swing your swing, and if you change Jim Furyk, you lose Jim Furyk. I would agree with that at 25 or 6, but I don't think I would agree with that at 13. I think if Jim Furyk would have swung fairly conventional, he could have still been as successful as he was today.
Well, Chase and I were from two different eras here, so we're not going to 100% agree on everything in here. But I agree with Chase. At 12 or 13, we can change him, and his mind is what's going to make him. 25 or 6 might be a little bit too late to the game to change.
He already is what he is.
He is what he is.
We refined that, yeah.
So maybe a little bit, college level, you can probably still change him a little bit in college.
And I think to that point, that's a good segue to, again, let's talk a little bit about the academy. So we've got 3 bays here, 3 full teaching bays with some opportunity for some more down the line. 2 TrackMan, a GC quad. We've got a swing catalyst force plate, some 3D stuff. So we have a lot of new school stuff, right? And one thing I've always respected about you is your openness and your intrigue. You've always been intrigued by this, like you mentioned. Let's talk about the academy a little bit. And the other thing I want to talk about is to a Jim Furyk that walks in the door at 26 or 27. One of the things I think students at home fail at is they come in when they're always desperate and they're always struggling. The greatest thing about technology, in my opinion, is capturing your data in 2000 or in 83 when you won some of these tournaments. And now we have Hal Sutton's pattern on the wall. And then when you're struggling after a stint at the British Open when it's blowing 50, or you laid off for a couple weeks, at home on vacation, we know how you were moving it when you're at your best, and we can always get you there faster. So talk a little bit about the academy. Talk a little bit about the role of technology now.
Well, you've kind of already told them what we have here, but equipment is really important once you know how to use the equipment. So I'm gonna say that we have club fitting here as well, and a lot of y'all think that you can buy a game. It's not possible to buy a game, and your equipment, once you are a better player, when you're starting out, if you've got game improvement equipment, it'll help you. As you begin to progress and get better, your equipment needs to get better too. And so we have all the ability to do all of that here. But mainly the reason why I wanted to start this is because if y'all could see everything in here, there's pictures all over the wall of 25 years of playing professional golf. And, I've got some of my greatest moments are in here in pictures. And I wanted to put a definition to all of that. How did it happen? Why did it happen? And there's a lot of things that go into that. We've already talked about that, but it's been a mystery to me. I knew I worked hard, and I knew that my will to compete was as strong as anybody's, and I'll tell you right now, if there's one single word that I think drives all of us is competition. It's why during this whole pandemic, that we were, at a loss because we didn't have competition to watch. I'm so happy with the tour that they were the first to get back. Mm-hmm. And it gave us something to watch people compete at. We love it.
It's the best drama.
It's the best drama. Mm-hmm. And, so I had that in me. I wanted to find out why. Yeah. So that's why this is here.
What has it taught you? What is not the academy, what's some of the technology? Are there anything that you didn't know that you wish you would have known, anything to that?
Well, I never really knew for sure what my path was. I mean, I could look at my divot and tell what my path was, but to be able to define exactly what it was, I couldn't do that. Yep. One of the things that I love about technology is we talk about feel is not real. And the truth of the matter, it isn't real, but we're beginning to define feel with technology. So when we first started teaching together out at Big Easy, we helped build that place out there, and we had bays that would open up and you could head out into the range. We'd get young kids that would come in there, and they would hit it and immediately look at see what the data said. And I'd be hollering at them, watch the ball till it hits the ground. Because the ball's telling you the same thing that this is going to tell you. But now if you watch it all the way, you'll be able to relate what this stuff actually means. Right. And, I'm an artist. I watched the ball. The ball told me what to do. Yep. And that's all I had. You know, I had grainy video, and I didn't have any TrackMan or anything like that.
And with some of the ball flight laws that we've learned, we've kind of updated them. The ball, the ball never lies was, the ball doesn't lie was always a saying that you guys had back in the day. I would say sometimes the ball would confuse you. Some of the left balls, there was, back in the day, it was always at times hold the lag, swing to right field, and, fix every left ball by swinging more right. Well, we know now that's not true. There's plenty of left balls in the path, an inside out swing path. But so I think that it's, technology in my mind has helped us to guess less.
Well, you asked me a second ago, one of the things that I've learned since we started doing this. I haven't learned this necessarily with my game because it was really important that I knew how far I could hit it. Yeah. But everybody that comes in here, with no exception, thinks they hit it further than they actually hit it. Yeah. And why is that important that I tell you this? Because if you really want to be a good player, you must know exactly how far you can carry each club. Right. Each club, I said. And then I tweeted out something not long ago that I said a real good player has 40 or 50 clubs in his bag. Legally, you can only have 14, but a really good player knows how to use each club at 3 different speeds, maybe even more. Yep. And, in today's world, every kid wants to nuke it as much as they can, and they'll pull the club that will actually just get to the flag if they nuke it, which means 99% of the time they're short. And it's an old saying, I've never seen a ball go in the hole that was short.
Sure. Well, and to Hogan's point where he only hit, 3 or 4 perfect shots around, was it something like that? I mean, one of the best ball strikers ever. You were one of the best ball strikers ever. I mean, there's a difference between hitting it solid and puring it, and you don't pure it every time. You might hit it solid 9 times out of 10, but that one that's maxed out, only 1 out of 10. And if the amateur golfer's trying to max it out, I mean, they just have no chance. It's amazing. We do combines and stuff in here. It's amazing. Oh yeah, I hit it this far. No, you don't.
So you just brought up a really good point. Let me set this straight. Every time y'all turn on a PGA Tour event and TV is on, they're showing you the last 3 or 4 groups, and all of those guys are hitting good shots and making putts. They didn't show you the guys that packed their bags on Friday night and went home. Right. PGA Tour pros do not hit it good all the time. So what we have to do as a touring pro, you have to learn how to put all of these things together to make a finished product. And y'all are living and breathing on each and every shot you hit. And you're letting the one shot define who you are. Yep. So the first lesson of getting better has got to be you're not going to define yourself with any one particular shot, good or bad.
Yeah, and it's almost, I mean, my dad is bad about this too. He'll miss 7 greens short and then hit 1 long and be like, man, I hit that one a long way. Like, what about the 7 you left short? Like, why is it, and obviously there's some greens where you just can't hit it over. But still, I'm like, be long. That's what I love. I think it was Jackie Burke that said, can you hit his club over the green? And if you can't, it's not enough club. Not always the case for every shot, but I think as a general rule for most listeners out there, that's a good way to play golf.
Well, you mentioned Jackie to me, that he was the one that said that he would throw his money clip on the ground and say, if you can't bet that whole thing that you've got the club that you can fly over the green, then you don't have the right club.
Yeah.
So let's analyze what he meant by that. He meant pull plenty of club to go over the green and then throttle back. Don't pull too little a club and try to throttle up, because then you sacrifice accuracy when you do that.
Absolutely, and especially in today's world where from manufacturers to, you look at the PGA Tour with Bryson and the quest for distance. We get a lot of kids in here. I laugh all the time. I hit it pretty far. I fly driver 305, 310, and we'll have kids come in, and I've got blades and I've got very high spinny iron shafts, and so I hit my 7-iron 175, 180. We'll get kids that hit their 7-iron 185, 190 and only hit their driver 275, 280. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, because they're low loft, game improving irons, swing as hard as they can, and then they can't hit their driver very far. So in this quest for distance, obviously we're in a new age than the persimmon drivers you have in the corner over there. One of the things I like to say is, okay, you're allowed to max out your driver with the big heads we have, and with the forgiving drivers and the shafts and the balls we have. Go ahead and step on driver a little bit, but we've got to rein you in with irons and be precise with irons. Would you agree with that?
100%. If my son was 13 years old, I'd tell him swing as hard as he can, and we'll learn how to hit it straight. Yeah. And the manufacturers have done a really good job. We got low spin balls. We got forgiving drivers with bigger sweet spots. So it's easier to learn how to hit it straight right now than it's ever been. But take me, for instance. I never swung at it hard my whole life. I was a product of my environment. I grew up on a short, tight golf course, and I learned how to hit it straight. And I wasn't short in my era, but I wasn't one of the biggest hitters because that wasn't my goal. I wasn't trying to be. Yeah. And but today, a kid comes in here, if he doesn't have enough speed, we got to up that. In order for him to be a productive player down the road, he's got to learn how to hit it far enough.
Until they change any of the rules, which we'll probably get into later, but until they change the rules, it's exactly right. We've got to push the envelope a little bit.
Right.
And it's funny you mentioned product to your environment. I grew up on in northwest Oklahoma, wide open, windy, easy golf course, and I hit it everywhere and made a lot of birdies because it was a wide open golf course. And so I hit it long, but I've had to learn how to kind of I had to learn how to tighten up, or I'd miss cuts and hit it in the trees too often and shoot high scores because I couldn't hit a fairway. So I think that's another fascinating subject that we'll get into later, is just your golfer story. How did you grow up, under what conditions, what equipment, what was your home golf course like, and it's really had a large impact on where you ended up as you've aged.
That's a great point right there. One of the things we're going to do in this podcast today is we're going to touch on several subjects just for a minute, and down the road we'll go into more detail on all of these things. But one of the things that Chase and I do when they first come in is we ask people, okay, what's your lowest score, period, what's your lowest score in competition, what kind of golf course did you grow up on, and we ask them, we try to figure out what their mindset is. And because let me tell you something, mindset is a lot of becoming a really good player. And we get kids that come in here that think they're a really good player, and we'll ask them what their lowest score is, and they'll tell us 74 or 5. And they're 15, 16 years old. By the time I was 15, I'd already broke the course record. You had too. Mm-hmm. And, 65 already. And now they may be playing a golf course that's really, really hard, and they can't shoot less than that. But their mind is not even comfortable if they go less than that.
That's exactly right.
So we tell them to move up to the ladies' tees and get comfortable. And let me tell you what it does to you. You start making birdies, you start thinking birdies, and then on top of that, you get to the last 4 or 5 holes, and you're 4 or 5 under, and you get nervous. So you have to change your whole line of thinking. So what do you think about that?
I think it's huge. I mean, there's been plenty of studies out that show that most of the PGA Tour players grew up on a course with a rating at 70 or under. 71 or under, somewhere around there. So it's not like they're growing up on Kiowa Island or growing up on these really hard Oak Tree National, these really hard golf courses. I think it's huge. I think, you're lowering your comfort zone is so difficult to do. And if your low round at home is 70 or 71 or 75, your low round in the tournament's going to be 77 or 78 or 79. That's just the case. Very rarely is your low round in the tournament lower than home. And so I think it's huge to go out and play from, for those of you at home that are playing from 6,700 yards or whatever, go out and play from 6,000 yards. One, you're going to work on your wedge game. So you're going to have to improve, or it's going to help you improve in certain areas. But two, I love what it does if you get off to a good start and you're 3 or 4 under after a couple holes, and let's say your low round's even par. Immediately the brain starts to self-sabotage you a little bit. Oh my gosh, if I par out, I do this. And as you know, you've really helped me with this, is staying in the moment, staying in the present. Like, if Hal Sutton's 4 under through 5 on the 6th hole, he's saying, hey, where am I going to hit my next shot? How do I need to play this hole to give myself the best opportunity? You're not thinking if. You're thinking, what do I have to do?
So much to this game. We hope to accomplish giving you a lot of wisdom in the game. With coming episodes, I think our next episode, Chase, you wanted to talk about the 2000 TPC.
Let's talk about the Be the Right Club today and what happened. And there's some cool stories leading up to that a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah, there was, let me tell you all about wins. Wins start happening long before the week, and that'll be something that y'all will learn. I mean, and that's true. Goals. We'll talk about goals here for a minute. I had goals every year. Some people are afraid to set goals because you don't want to face failure. And one of the things we talk about in here, you either win or you learn. You never fail. You're learning something every time you go out. And parents, y'all need to look at it like that instead of your kid failed. And because they're not failing, they're learning something every time they go.
And they don't want to play bad. They're not trying to make bad decisions. They just make them, and they've got to learn from them instead of just getting beat down every time.
Another little tidbit about parents and kids. We're going to talk a lot about parents and kids. Right up here to your left and my right is a picture of my dad and I when I won the PGA Championship. And if you could see this picture, his smile is just as big as mine. And I bring every kid that comes in here with his parent, and I say, so who won that day? And the kid will immediately say, I did. And the truth is, Dad won that day too. And I want to give you all some things to think about. He had sweat every bullet with me. He had financed everything I had done until I turned professional. So if you don't think he felt like he won that day, you're dead wrong. And why would I deny somebody that I love so much his feeling of victory? So we're going to talk a lot about that.
Yeah, I mean, he probably made just as many sacrifices as you did to help you get there.
Well, a real quick story about my dad and I is one time I said to my dad, I said, you've never told me you love me. And he said, oh, you're a word guy, huh? He said, I gave up all my friends, I gave up all my hobbies to finance your program and to be with you all the time, and you needed simply for me to tell you I loved you? I sacrificed everything for you. He said, I'm an action guy. Isn't that an incredible story?
That's pretty powerful. That's pretty powerful. So one of the things that's exciting for me about this podcast is to get into your mind a little bit about, I think you've got such a unique perspective in that you spent some time around Mr. Hogan. You spent some time around Mr. Nelson. You spent some time around Mr. Palmer, and you went head to head close to both of their primes with Jack and Tiger. And and beat them both. I don't think there's too many players in the game that have done that. Talk about a little bit of them and the greats and what you took from them.
Well, mention my dad. This is some of the sacrifices that he made. He joined Shady Oaks because Ben Hogan was there all the time, and they had bent grass greens. He really did it because they had bent grass greens, and he wanted me to learn how to putt on bent grass greens. But the byproduct of that was being around Mr. Hogan all the time. My dad did business with Brighton Shift in Dallas. Mr. Shift was really close friends with Byron Nelson, and he suggested me meeting Byron Nelson, and that went into a 3-year of me working with Mr. Nelson. And then when Houston tried to recruit me, first person I ran into in Houston was Jackie Burke. So I had Jackie Burke, Ben Hogan, and Byron Nelson giving me crumbs of wisdom that they dropped, or that I was maybe smart enough to ask them a decent question that they might give me an answer on. So we will take time, and we'll have an episode each, really, of what I know about Ben Hogan and Byron Nelson and Jackie Burke. They're all great players in their own. I mean, they all won every big event, really, and it was my fortune that I was able to spend that kind of time with them.
So I have to ask, since you mentioned we're going to do an episode on Mr. Hogan, we're going to talk about a secret, right? You're going to share. You can share with him a secret.
Okay, I'm going to share it with y'all. Are y'all listening? There is no secret. I tell you, we're all trying to turn over that rock where that secret is at, and it doesn't exist. I'll tell you what it is: hard work. That's it.
I think you've really opened my eyes on it's hard work. It's a functional. You've got to become a functional ball striker.
Yeah.
Not necessarily functional golf swing would equate to functional ball striking, but
right.
Hard work, functional ball striking, and commitment. That was his secret. He believed in what he did. He got good at it, and he committed to the process.
That's, committing to the process instead of the product.
Yeah.
Is like as important as anything we've said here. Y'all get lost in the result, and I tried my best to get lost in the process of it, and then accept the result. It's hard to accept that result sometimes, but if I can keep my brain right here instead of letting it go out there at the target, I'm much better off.
Sure, Tiger talked about trusting the process a lot, and if you think about it with this crazy game we play, I mean, you're only going to win, at the PGA Tour level, you're going to win 5, 6, 7% of the time, 10% of the time at the most. So you got to trust in something. If you're trusting in the result each time, you're going to get beat down a lot more than you're going to win. So trusting in the process sounds like the way to go. It's hard to do. It's easier said than done, but if you can do it.
It's hard to do. You go to the British Open you mentioned earlier, and the wind blowing 30 miles an hour, and it's a different game over there. They play with the ball on the ground, and the Americans play with the ball in the air all the time.
Sure.
So an American goes to the British Open, and he's got to convert his game to that type of play for 1 week. And usually, if the weather will allow it, the Americans play better when it's nicer weather. When it gets to be uglier weather, it's a little bit harder to do.
Sure.
Because we don't play that kind of game over here.
They're used to it. Right?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, you've been more active on Twitter this year. What? First of all, I got to ask, do you like social media?
I'm doing social media for y'all, to be honest with you. I'm just dropping tidbits of wisdom on there to people that love the game, hoping that people will pick it up. And every now and then I get the guy that wants to be mean, and I have to overlook it and put myself into the process rather than the product.
Sure.
And but anyway, I love, Twitter is a newspaper basically, and it gives me a chance to put things out there. And that's something that if y'all follow us on Twitter, it's Hal Sutton Golf. On Instagram and Facebook, it's Hal Sutton Golf. So follow us. But if you've got something you want to talk about, please reach out to us on there, because we want to fulfill your needs. One of the things that we talk about when a new player comes in here, what do you want from the game?
Yeah. And from us.
And from us.
Yep.
And how can we help you become the golfer that you want to be? So y'all look at it that way. You can reach out to us online and get video lessons, but ask us questions through those forums.
Yeah, we're going to, goals of the podcast, we're going to have some guests on.
Yep.
I would say, we're going to try and release one a week. 30, 45 minutes, an hour max would be some of the Mr. Hogan or some of the stories might go a little bit longer, but 30 to 45 minutes would be kind of the goal. And, we want to educate. Like I said, we want to bring on some unique guests. They might not all be golfers. We might, I know some athletes that, that played in other sports that would be great to talk about with commitment and with belief and hard work and all that stuff. There'll be some cool discussions that we hope to have from that. And so for those of you, again, listen, we're going to do some YouTube lives. We're going to be we'll adjust on the fly if we need to. We're not going to be set in our ways. We'll be flexible. Kind of how we are here at the academy. We'll be flexible in what we do. But I think we'll be able to. We're gonna have some fun. And if we're gonna, we'll get into some deep discussions about technology and what I've learned from the 3D world and what technology's taught me and what it's taught you about your own swing and with other students and stuff. And so let's. I want you to end with a story, and it's one of my favorite stories from one of my favorite of the many I've heard from you. But I want you to talk about the Peter Jacobsen Ryder Cup story.
It was. First of all, Peter's a very close friend of mine, and he's one of the funniest people that I know. And if any of y'all follow him or know much about him, you know how funny Peter can be. But this was one of those spontaneous moments. We were in 1985 Ryder Cup. We were at the Belfry, and neither one of us were playing Saturday morning. And we were both out on the practice range hitting balls. And he was hitting a driver, and I was just standing there watching him hit a driver. So he hits this driver, and it's in the air, and all of a sudden this guy runs across the end of the driving range down there and runs right into the ball that Peter just hit and goes down like you'd shot him with a bullet. And Peter looks around at me just this quick and says, 1 down and 34,999 to go. And what makes that so funny is that was when Trevino was captain, and that was really the first Ryder Cup that got contentious.
It was starting to become the Ryder Cup.
It was starting to become the Ryder Cup that we have today.
Yep.
They were very competitive. Seve was in full bloom at that point, and it was a difficult week as an American player, and Peter just put that funny moment on us that quick.
Well, I'm sure we're going to have plenty of interesting Ryder Cup stories and Ryder Cup discussions going forward.
Ryder Cup will be part of what we talk about. It is.
So a couple of things. Again, Hal mentioned it, but follow us at Hal Sutton Golf on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We've got HalSuttonGolf.com is our website. Interested in online lessons, remote lessons, coming down to see us, man. Check us out. Hal, close us out.
Chase, I'm just real excited to be doing this with you. Not just this podcast, but Chase and I are close friends, and I feel it's my honor to be able to do this with Chase. And I told him that this is the kind of teacher I believe he is. I told him that I wanted him to feel the same thing in the teaching world that I felt in the playing world. And if we could get that plateau for him, I've done my job. And I think we're going to get there. I know you got that kind of talent.
Well, thank you. I'm definitely looking forward to this because it's fun to sit down and talk to you. And I've always enjoyed. I've really enjoyed the last 4 years teaching. Side by side with you practically every day. And so it's been awesome. And I'm looking forward to this new journey.
Yep, it's going to be fun. Y'all stay tuned.
Be the right club today. Yes!